difference, one cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz. That's right, it's lunchtime. It is January 13th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I am back. This year, I am back with education, bringing educational awareness to incredible topics that need to be spoken on. I do have a disclaimer, so I will get into that, and then I will bring in my incredible guest that is joining me today. So the disclaimer that I have, disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Times live shows. I am going live and using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that content brought forward for any of these Tea Time shows hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith, however, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of her platform. The faith and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participation are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for somewhere they may be emotional at risk. There may be trigger warnings. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or of any of the panelists' discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in this show in any aspect, Miss Liz welcomes you. Should you decide that this show is not for you at this time, I respect that, and that is your choice, and I welcome you back to join me at a later time. So I want to thank you all for joining me today on Tea Time. Today is launch day, and I'm going to bring in my guest. I'm just going to grab him here. He's in the back of the studio, patiently waiting. Welcome. So in the studio today, I have the incredible Matt Sinkovitz.
That's right.
Vitz, right? I got it right. Yep. So I'm going to read just a little bit on his bio, and then he's going to get into what porn to purpose is all about and making peace with porn. So it will be a show that may trigger some. So please, again, I advise you, if this is going to trigger you in any way, I ask you not to tune into this show. And if it helps you in any way, or you feel that this show has any purpose to you, please tune in and share it with someone who could relate to this matter. So Matt Sinkovitz has been a practitioner and teacher of personal and spiritual development for over a decade. An avid student of mindfulness and meditation, Matt graduated from the Blue Mountain School of Mindfulness Arts Seminary program in May 2018. With a master's in Buddhist ministry, and was ordained Asha priest in May 2019. In this capacity, he has now serviced as a spiritual. He has now serviced as a spiritual guide and interfaith chaplain in prisons and hospitals. Matt began his studies in Buddhism and New Thought as a young adult, seeking resolution of his own personal life dilemma. Overcoming his 20 years plus compulsive relationship with porn, Matt has inspired to share his journey and support other men in their path to liberation. Through his online Facebook support community, Porn to Purpose, Matt currently runs the 90-day liberation boot camp, as well as a 7-day porn abstinence challenge. Matt is passionate about the community commitment to support committed fathers and husbands in ending their toxic relationships with porn, so they can I'm gonna have trouble with this word.
Reignite.
Reunite that passion in their relationships and be better role models to their children. So again, welcome, Matt, and thank you so much for coming on Tea Time. It is an honor to have you here with me today. So I'm just going to get into it. I've rambled on enough. I'm going to sit back and enjoy my cup of tea here and get you to share a little bit on your journey and what porn to purpose is and how you made peace with porn.
Sure. Thanks, Liz, very much for having me on today. I really like your intro that you had going there. That was cool.
Well, thanks.
And your little musical intro there. Yeah. So my name is Matt Sinkovitz, and I'm the founder and primary coach at the Porn to Purpose men's coaching community. And so I'm a men's coach. I also run the Porn to Purpose men's Facebook community, which is a private community of just about 900 men from around the world. That it's a community of men that have come together to uproot and resolve their relationship with porn and get it behind them for good. Maybe during today's conversation we'll get more into kind of my history and my path and how I got here and everything like that. But that's primarily what I'm out here to do is to serve men who have identified that pornography is unhealthy for them and they'd like to remove it from their lives. And that's the work that we do.
So what was it that got you to know that there was a problem, Matt?
For me, porn is one of those things that I don't just say it's necessarily bad across the board for everybody. Some people they seem to be able to maintain a healthy relationship with it. I run into a lot of guys who are like, I never have looked at porn, which is always really interesting to me. I thought most guys had. But so a lot of people have there are many people, I guess I should say, who have either never looked at it or they look at it just once in a while and it's not a problem for them. But for some people, just like, the same way for some people, alcohol, some people can have a couple beers on the weekend and it's not a problem. But for some people, one sip of alcohol turns really toxic. Some people have a similar type relationship with pornography, with sex, addictive, kind of compulsive relationship with it. And that was the case with me. Porn was something that came into my life in my adolescence, 10, 11, 12, probably somewhere in there. And it was something that was with me for, 20 plus years, up into my 20s and even into my 30s. And it was something that for me, I recognized as something that was not healthy for me, something that was compulsive and addictive, something that did have a adverse effect on my life and the different key areas of my life. And it was something I decided to remove from my life, but I was not successful on my own, so I ended up hiring a coach and getting into a program and doing the work around it that way. But just to answer your question, I recognize it was a problem for me because it was having a harmful impact on my life in many ways.
So did you notice that there was an increase of watching it or like, did it cause like different mental stableness and like work relates or like relationships or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, it affected my relationships, social and intimate. It affected my spiritual life. I felt it was a spiritual ceiling of sorts. I felt it inhibited me from connecting to my purpose and the work that I felt called to be doing, which kind of speaks to our name, Porn to Purpose. It affected me energetically, physically. It affected me at work and my productivity, and the momentum in my life. So yeah, it was affecting every key domain of my life, and it was something that, I think like with anything, it's like, of course we desire perfection, but there's this thing. It's really about the growth journey. So for me, it was something that probably increased over time in my life. I'm sure there was a peak period where it was very, very regular, maybe every day or several times a day, and then it began to diminish, and it just becomes a less and less a part of your life and a less and less a part of who you are. So yeah, it was definitely something that increased in regularity and also the extreme natures of the genres, which is very common.
So you had mentioned something a few minutes ago. You thought that all guys watch porn. I thought all guys watch porn too. So I like that you brought that up. But do you feel that porn was like an educator for men on how sex should be? Because I'm getting that a lot from the research that I've been doing since we talked. I've done some research, and a lot of men use it as an educator.
Yeah, it's one of those things, Liz. I think for a lot of people, especially today, we're seeing that kids are getting their hands on earlier and earlier with access to the internet and access to phones. And we are seeing it really does skew the way in which people, both men and women, boys and girls, view porn, and also the expectations around porn. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's educating people. And even if you're not a kid, there's a lot of comparison that goes on around pornography. So men see what's going on in pornography, and they're comparing either what their performance or what their body or what their anatomy should look like, or also I think one of the most detrimental things is how the women should be performing and what the expectations of women are because of the training and how they're being kind of developed through regular use of pornography.
I like that you mentioned that it kind of makes the man think that this is how the woman should perform,
Right.
and then the women feel like they're not good enough, their self-esteem goes down. Okay, I can't please him because this is what he wants, this is what he sees. But it's also a fantasy, right? Like
Right.
it's like watching a movie. What's in the movie is not what real life is,
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and I think that's where that disconnect comes in, and that. And I
Right.
really like that you've brought in the title "Porn to Purpose," because there is a purpose for porn, because a healthy mindset, sexuality is part of your mindset. So it is part of your healthy mental health as well, healthy sex life, Um, so the porn to purpose, like when I heard the title "Purpose," I was like, how could that be, a purpose to porn,
Mhm.
But then you got deeper into it and you said making peace with porn.
Yeah.
And you can make peace with it as a man and as a woman as well, because there are some women out there as well that have addictions to porn, and that. So, but you're a man, so I see why you're relating with the male side.
Right.
But would you be open in the future for females?
I would be. I mean, I dug in around the conversation regarding the men, just because that was the journey that I was familiar with. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I think if we open up to that sort of thing, I think it's important to make sure that you can do it service, and really do it justice and serve, the person who's seeking help from you. There probably are people out there that specialize in pornography addiction for women. I'm not sure if that's women or if there's men that specialize in it, but I would be open to it. But I think I'd really want to make sure I really felt I could be of service and support. Again, not being quite familiar with the female experience.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that, because you're a male, so
Right.
But I just wanted to see if that would be an open option in the future,
Mhm.
because there are women out there that has that addiction as well.
Very much so.
So I don't want this to only be based on it is only males that suffer from addiction of porn. There are
Mhm.
females out there as well.
Right.
So you do have a 10-day boot camp. Could you share a little bit on that boot camp and why you created that boot camp?
Mhm. Well, there's two separate things. There is the 90-day liberation boot camp, which is our 90-day program that we put men through that come into our coaching community as clients. So it's a very comprehensive approach to helping them resolve their relationship with pornography long term, really get to the root of that relationship with porn and do the healing that may need to be done there around early childhood traumas or whatever's going on there. So we take a deep look at that root relationship with pornography and work to resolve that for good. But we also really help the man connect with, a healthy way of living, helping him connect to his sense of purpose and his higher calling in life, and, the way in which he's called to leave and to serve. And that connecting to that greater sense of responsibility in life is really a big piece of the long-term abstinence puzzle, because triggers continue to come up. I think they do diminish as we continue on in our passion. We get better at dealing with them, but I think it's one of these things that it's really important to be mindful of, maybe for the long term. So connecting to that greater vision or that greater why or that greater sense of purpose for life is really important. So that's the Liberation Boot Camp. That's our kind of our paid program for members that come in. But then we also we have a free support group. It's called Porn to Purpose as well. And it is the 7-day porn abstinence challenge. We actually just got done running one last week. We run that about quarterly in our group. And we challenge men to 7 days abstinence from porn. Men come into our community from around the world and they make a commitment video right inside the community to 7 days of abstinence. And then I do daily live training inside the group, really giving them a lot of the fundamental stuff that we're giving them inside the Liberation Boot Camp, and give them some of the foundation for long-term freedom in this work as well. So that's the 7-day porn abstinence challenge.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Like, and I like the words that the trauma, the triggers, for yourself, Matt, was it a trauma that created the porn addiction for you, or?
I don't know. For me, I don't think it was a trauma as much as, for me, I grew up in the Christian church.
Okay.
And I grew up in a good, healthy home. Every home has its stuff, it's dysfunction. But I think generally speaking, I grew up in a good, healthy home. But yeah, I grew up in a really kind of more rigid Christian environment, and the conversation around sex was not that regular. I didn't really feel very comfortable around my sexuality as a kid, or exploring it or asking questions. If it did come up, it felt awkward, for me as a kid. So I think pornography for me was a way to explore my own sexuality and kind of explore that aspect of me as a kid. And I was also kind of like a shy kid, and I wasn't really good with girls or, with that sort of thing as a kid. So I think for me, it was also a way to connect, in a sense, connect with my sexuality, express my sexuality, and explore, that side of me from the comfort and safety of my bedroom, maybe,
So are you finding out through these programs that you're doing, Matt, is it trauma related for most cases?
I wouldn't say most cases, but very often there is early childhood trauma. And I think, trauma could come in many forms, Liz. It's
Yes.
like, it could come in the form of molestation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is something that I see many men dealing with. But it also could come in the form of a trauma from maybe an alcoholic father, or a father who was not emotionally present in the home. You know what I mean? Or maybe there was violence in the home. Maybe it wasn't even directly, or directed at the kid, but he used pornography to feel safe in his home. So I think trauma can come in many forms. Maybe some more apparent or extreme than others, but oftentimes there is some kind of early childhood trauma or something that kind of triggered us to begin using porn to comfort ourselves and using sex, to comfort ourselves and to deal with life.
Now, with Porn to Purpose, do you guys use the word sex, or do you use the word porn?
In Porn to Purpose, we do really focus on the pornography conversation, but we do recognize that, a porn addiction is just a branch of sex addiction, so many of our guys that are dealing with porn are not just dealing with that. They're dealing with, infidelity within the relationship, or, prostitution, or whatever, phone sex. There's a lot of different manifestations of that, but we do focus mostly on the porn topic in our conversation.
Well, and it's important that we get that message out there, because there is a difference. We need to educate. And again, we're not telling you how to determine if you are have an addiction or not. We are only here to give you awareness, and Matt is only sharing his personal story and his personal programs that he has out there. What age were you, Matt, when you first watched porn?
Yeah, I think, man, I think Liz is pretty typical, probably 13, 14. So, I remember teenage. Like a couple, definitely a teenager. I remember a couple instances. I'm not sure exactly what the first one was, or when the first time I might say I was exposed to pornography versus maybe just seeing something on TV. But I think probably 12, 13 is my guess, Liz.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a child, did you think that it was normal, or did it increase as you got older, or
I
was
don't know
it
if I
something?
thought it was normal, but I definitely liked it. It was exciting and intriguing. As a kid, it's really fascinating and quite quite what would be a good word, like intoxicating, and
Okay,
it's exciting as a kid. So
get that high, right?
yeah, you get that high, and it's got this kind of allure to it, and you're not supposed to be doing it, so there's that element of it as well. So it's
Well, I
really
think I think
quite
that's where
fascinating.
that high comes from, right, Matt? Is we're not supposed to be doing it, but we still do it, right? Like,
Yeah, I think that the high also comes from the dopamine that we receive,
yeah.
as a result of that exposure.
So, how long have you been free of porn?
I began my journey back in June of 2019 was whenever I went and really decided that I needed to work with somebody, hire a coach, and really dig in and resolve this at a much deeper level for myself.
So it's still brand new for you, right?
Well, yeah, I'm certainly newer in the journey. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, what resources did you turn to for help, Matt?
For me, Liz, it was a group coaching program
Okay.
that I ended up investing in. I'd been doing a lot of coaching work and working with mentors and guides for many years. So for me, whenever I kind of identified this was something that I needed to resolve for myself, I just went to what I had always been doing. Whenever I had a specific problem, I hired a coach and got into community and accountability around it.
Cool. So, when I talked to you before the show, I asked you for one word that describes you, and the one word that you gave me was accountability.
Mm-hmm.
What does that word mean to you?
Well, accountability speaks to, I think, integrity. It speaks to, doing what we say and saying what we do. And being someone that abides by their word. And honors their word. And when we make commitments around something, we do our very best to show up and honor it. And in our community, we say, how I do anything is how I do everything. So. If I'm not showing up or if I'm not accountable in one area of my life, I'm likely to not be accountable in another area of my life.
Plus,
So
taking responsibility, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And ownership, right? Because we can't change anything until we own up and say, you know what, it's us too that needs to change, right?
Yeah, full ownership, full responsibility, absolutely.
So I think that's where the accountability comes in for you, is
Yep.
taking that responsibility and showing that it can be done.
Yes.
What message have you learned about yourself since you've taken coaching and the resources to heal yourself?
I think one of the biggest things I identified was, it's that when we go to these addictive or compulsive behaviors, no matter what it is, I think this is one of the biggest things. Oftentimes it's because we're attempting to meet other needs. Oftentimes when we go to porn or sex or cigarettes or alcohol or drugs or food, sometimes it's to meet a direct need, right? Sometimes we go to food when we're hungry, but sometimes we're standing in front of the refrigerator at 12 o'clock at night and we're not hungry. We're just looking for something else, And I used to smoke cigarettes, and that was the same thing. A lot of times I was just smoking because maybe I was feeling lonely. Maybe I was feeling bored. Maybe I was looking for some kind of connection. Maybe I was feeling anxious and stressed. And that was one of the biggest insights I had, that I have been using porn in order to deal with certain needs, certain emotions. I was using porn to connect, to escape, to feel good. And, I think once I became more aware of the needs I was attempting to meet by using porn, I could then identify, okay, how can I begin to meet these needs in a healthier way? And another piece of this is, pornography addiction, much like any addiction, is very emotionally driven. We're experiencing this urge, this impulse, this energy that comes up in the body, and we need to do something with it. And something I've learned and continue to learn is that, children run away from their emotions. But I think we as mature adults, we have the choice to actually learn to sit with our emotions, to be with our emotions. Just because I'm experiencing something doesn't mean I have to run away or release it. I can learn to be with it first and foremost and explore what's going on for me there, and then learn to meet it in a healthier way.
Well, and it's facing it, right? Facing
Yeah.
that fear
Yeah.
and saying, you know what, no matter how scared I am, I got to face this, right?
Right.
So did somebody tell you you needed help, or did you find something click, like a red flag go off and say, you know what, Matt, you need help with this right now?
No, there was not something I was like I shared with anybody. It was very very private journey. Yeah, for me, there's a couple things that I offer whenever someone is trying to kind of gauge for themselves, is this a problem for me? And I can share those with you if you like. But for me, it just kind of became more and more apparent, especially as I continued to grow in awareness and grow in consciousness, that it was something that was unhealthy for me. It was something many times in my journey I decided I was done with and I wanted to quit, but continued to return to. And I kind of recognized, like, if I continue on this trajectory, I'm going to end up being an old man, you know what I mean? And not have this thing resolved. And I didn't want that for myself. So for me, it was just, it was the point of, like, when the pain of where you are is greater than the pain of making the change, or however that dynamic works. I forget exactly. Then you'll be motivated enough to make the change, and that's where I was. I was just tired of not being able to, I think, control myself and really find resolution in it for myself.
Well, I'd be honored to hear what steps you took and how you took them and all that. I'd really like to get into the journey of how you got to where you are and how you made peace with porn, because you're very, very you feel relaxed now, at peace. And I guess maybe making peace with porn has something to do with that. So if you could share with the viewers and the listeners out there, how did you find that peace, Matt?
Yeah, well, I mean, the peace that I could say that I have in my life at this time, or the peace that I've found with porn, I think, I've been on a very intentional personal and spiritual development, journey for many years. I'm 38 years old now. I began, I think, really investing in coaches and mentors and really taking my personal and spiritual development seriously, like around age 25. So 13 years, I'd say I've been really intentional about this growth path. And, it's been a personal growth path. It's been a mental growth path. It's been a physical growth path, but it's also been a spiritual growth path. So for me, I think that the peace that I have today is a result of my daily practices and the work that I've done on myself, and really staying committed to the things that keep me grounded and powerful and in a place of regular growth. So for me, I think it was a combination of the personal and spiritual development work and all the work I had done with the mentors. It was the process of mindfulness and meditation, which around age 25 I've really dug into, and ultimately went on to study with my teacher and become ordained as a Buddhist minister. So meditation and mindfulness and that spiritual work has been a very regular piece of my life. Also digging in around the work I did in the coaching organization and really getting to the root of my own relationship with pornography and figuring out what was really going on there, getting into community and accountability around it. All those things were a big piece of the puzzle. And I think at the end of the day, it's all been a result of the development of my own consciousness, just kind of like recognizing that certain habits and behaviors are toxic, and certain habits and behaviors do pull us down and have energetic effects. So for me, I think it was learning to see those things and learning to remove the weeds from the garden, so to speak, and stop engaging in the things that disrupt my peace.
I like that you said that, pulling the roots, right? Because when we had our one-on-one earlier, you had mentioned that pulling the weeds and replanting the seeds, right?
Yes.
And I can see the spiritual relationship because of your background and your history, right? So now let's get into the T. What is your T, Matt? So if I give you the word T, and I ask you for a word for each of the letters, the TEA, what is your T?
Yes. So the T for me, and it's past, present, future, correct, Liz?
Yes.
Okay. So the T for me, which would be my past, is I think truth, you know? So for me, embracing the truth of my past, the truth of my history, the truth of who I am, and bringing my truth to the world, and sharing it with others, and being as vulnerable as I can, and open and authentic and transparent as I can around my journey, to be of service and support to others. Also, seeking the truth. What is the truth? Um, yeah. So I think that would be my T. The E, I actually made some modifications to this list since you and I spoke
Oh,
with
I like
earlier.
modifications. I like that.
Yeah. So for E, which I guess is the present, I have evolution. You know,
Oh,
evolution.
I
Just
like that.
being in a constant state of growth and evolving in mind and in body and in spirit. In the Porn to Purpose community, we have this process of conscious evolution, which we help our brothers engage in, and it's like, we have these older versions of us. And, some people try and do abstinence from porn just by just saying, I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to stop. And that's what I used to try and do. But for me, I really found that, as I kind of alluded to in some of my shares earlier today, that it really came for me as a result of like a shift in who I was, a shift in consciousness, a shift in identity. So as we're intentional about our growth, as we're intentional about our evolution over time, at some point we turn around and we're no longer that old version of ourselves anymore, as we're intentional about our daily growth in mind and in body and in spirit. So that's where I am today. E for evolution. And then A, future, right? I have ascension. So my continual path upward of growth, that being my trajectory, just continuing to grow every single day and take another step every single day, and realize, I think, more and more who and what I am every single day, living out of that.
And I honestly think back that you honestly gave me your life tea now. Because when we first talked, I don't think you were giving me your life tea. There was there was something there. But the evolution, I can see that, because this is exactly what you're doing right in the present. Is you are evolving, you are changing, you are bringing a change. So a lot of people don't understand what evolution really is, and that's exactly what you're doing. And that's what I mean. You seem lighter today than when we first talked. And I think that's the piece of understanding that you're on this journey of changing, and evolving as you're sharing your story. Each time it'll get lighter and lighter, and the piece will become lighter and lighter. I don't know, there was just something different about you today than there was when we first had our one-on-one. And you seem a lot lighter today and a lot more at peace, if that makes any sense. But
Thank you,
yeah. So I want to get into how we can get the education out there in a healthy way, because porn is looked at as a negative thing. I've spoken to many males in the last few weeks, in the time that we set up your Teatime, and a lot of them have been told that porn is bad, or it's against a religion, or it will cause disruption, or distractions, and take them off of what they're supposed to be doing. Do you feel that has caused anything like that in your life and for others that you're coaching?
Well, I wouldn't say it's necessary. I mean, I'm not sure if I would say it's necessarily bad. I think certain genres and certain stuff that goes on in pornography could be bad. For example, taking advantage of a minor, someone under 18, or maybe someone who's engaging, the sex trafficking conversation is really hot today, and we're seeing a lot of that. So, if someone's been manipulated or coerced, or they're engaging in this stuff against their will, or whatever, they're being manipulated in some way, I think that could be bad. And I would also say that it can be toxic for some people. Again, as I mentioned, some people maintain a healthy relationship with it, and for them it's not a problem. Some couples incorporate it into their relationship. So I think pornography, as long as it's consenting adults and it's not causing harm to others, I think it could be okay. So generally speaking, that's where I would stand. But I just recognize that some people have a tendency toward addiction
Okay.
with it, and compulsion. And it's just like the alcoholic trying to say, you know what, I'm just going to drink occasionally. For some people, that just doesn't work. And for some people, like a moderate relationship with porn just is not healthy. It creates too much damage upon consumption, and it just leads to more and more, so it's just like a healthy relationship's just not an option, I don't think. Especially in today's world where the genres just grow and grow and they become more and more extreme. It's like you just have to have more and more and more, and you need a harder hit and a harder hit. Yeah, so that's where I would stand. I really do my best not to just judge it or judge everybody that uses it. I just recognize that for some, it really has some really damaging effects.
So do you have any affecting tips and tools on how to reach out for resources, especially if it's a private journey, right? Because you don't want to share it with your spouse or your family. So for you, it was a private journey. So is there ways of getting that into your lifestyle without people knowing, like going to a meeting or a coaching one-on-one without a family member knowing or your spouse knowing? And like, how did you find ways of doing that?
Yeah, so it is very much a private journey, and it's something that most people deal with by themselves. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's a lot of shame around it. So, and then what's really tough is like when a husband, maybe his wife doesn't know. Oftentimes she probably does know, but it's not something they discuss, because people know what's going on in their own home oftentimes and the behavior that comes with it. So people try and deal with it by themselves, and that's one way to do it. There are anonymous groups out there like Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous or Sex Addicts Anonymous. There are different ways to engage in it. Like our community is a private community. It is on Facebook, but only the members that are in our group can see who's in it. So you can begin, I think, to do some more anonymous work around this. Okay. But ultimately, I think porn is one of those things that hides in the darkness. It thrives in the darkness, and ultimately one of the best things we can begin to do is connect with others and begin to share our journey with others, and certainly those that are on the same path with us. And, you recommended what can someone begin to do? I think one of the best things someone can begin to do is just begin entering into community around this and begin to talk about it with others that are on the same path, that, in a safe, non-judgmental, loving space, and getting into some forms of accountability around it, beginning to get some education around it, and beginning to draw the lines like, wow, some people kind of like aren't aware that they are not connecting the dots like so many of us do. Like, pornography has this way for men. Maybe you'll use pornography during the day, you masturbate, right? And you expel your sex energy, right? And then you get home and you're disinterested in connecting with your wife, when she's ready to be intimate or wants to connect with you, But oftentimes we don't kind of put two and two together. We don't see that porn is affecting our sexuality or our intimate relationships, or our sexual energy. So something we can also begin to do is just to, I think, begin to pay more attention to the way in which porn affects us and begin to kind of connect some of those dots. I think getting into community and starting having conversations around this are a great way to begin to illuminate that for us.
I think that's right? Like the open conversation of being comfortable talking about porn without having that negative feel to it, right?
Yeah, and that's something I would offer to the ladies out there who might be listening. A lot of women are either they don't get it, they don't understand why their husband can't just stop, and they also are. Some women are really just disturbed by what their husband or what their husbands are watching. So I think for a lot of and maybe rightly so. But so I think a lot of men don't feel safe bringing it to their wife, bringing it to their partner. So I think the best thing a woman or partner might do if they suspect that their partner is engaging in this or has an issue with this is to really do your best to create a safe, loving, non-judgmental space for them to come and open up and to share and begin to explore it and do the work around it, not feel as though they have to hide it or have shame around it.
Well, that's it, right? The shame and the guilt and the negative. Like when I was speaking with other males about it, they were like, well, Liz, that's what taught us how to have sex. And I was like, from different countries, they're not even allowed to speak or ask their parents about what sex is or what. So they turn to porn to educate themselves, and they think that this is a healthy sex.
Right.
And I think this is where we're not doing the right teaching. We're not teaching our children right by saying, you know what, don't talk to us about sex. I'd rather have an open conversation with my children, knowing that they're having a healthy sex life, than being afraid to say, you know what, Mom, there's something wrong with me, and
Yes.
and find out that if they could have came and talked to me openly, that they wouldn't suffer from this. Do you feel
Right.
that not being able to speak to your parents about this, the porn addiction, do you feel that had any impact on you?
I think it probably did. Like I said, my sexuality for me was something I didn't really feel comfortable talking about or exploring, certainly not with my parents as a kid, So I kind of wonder, and that's something I offer to parents as well, is, can you create an environment where sex doesn't feel like such a taboo subject in conversation? Like, can we help our kids explore their sexuality in healthy ways? Can we help them come to a place of acceptance around it and not feel like it's some weird, gross part of me that I'm not supposed to talk about or I'm going to get in trouble about, So I think a healthy integration of our sexuality is really important, in terms of guiding the youth.
Well, I think that's right. Like making that initiative and that openness and conversation with our children. I don't want to know what they're doing in the bedroom, but I want to know that they're, it's pleasurable. It's not like a duty, like I have to make love to my wife, or I have to make love to my husband, because that's unhealthy. When you feel that you have to do it as a job, that's not healthy sex anymore. That's, there's an issue there. So I have that open dialogue with my children, and sometimes I'm like, TMI, I don't need to hear that part, but I just want to know that you're okay, and that if there is something, that you can come and speak to me.
Yep.
So I think we need to have that open dialogue for children out there,
Really important.
And what age do you think children should know about sexuality?
I think like with so many things, I'm not sure if there's a clear line. I think it's a parent's duty to probably gauge the maturity level, of that kid, and just kind of gauge if they feel the child is mature enough to be able to have that conversation. I think what I've seen in kind of like healthy homes is sex has always been like a regular part of the conversation. It wasn't something that people have to hide from or, dodge around, and mom and dad can be intimate in front of each other, in front of the family. And like, there's that loving intimacy and connection. And if it comes up, it could be a normal, casual conversation. It doesn't have to be like an awkward conversation. So in terms of what age, who knows? But I think it would be the responsibility of the parent to kind of gauge the maturity level and when's the right time to have that. But maybe it's not like we have to have it at this time. Maybe it's something that could just be a normal part of life,
Well, it's like you said, like, Sunday dinners, and we're not talking about what's going on in the bedroom, but we can actually have that conversation, like,
right.
Is there something changing in the body? Like, is there things, there's other ways that we can talk about sex, but not in such a taboo way, or that stigma or that shame.
Mm-hmm.
With school, we have sexual education. How do you feel about that, Matt?
In schools?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure what the current sex education looks like in schools. I know for me, it was like something that everybody laughed at and didn't really teach us much. Sex education in school was like an anatomy, pretty much,
Yeah.
Sex education came through life experience and having to learn my own lessons for myself,
Yeah, I didn't really learn anything from sexual education either in school. It was kind of like the laughing class, right? Like,
exactly.
Oh, we're just going to waste our time in this class. And, I didn't really feel that they had the resources or the tools or tips to give us, that healthy conversation.
And I think a couple of important things parents could do is really like figure out how to be like that friend to your kids. Like, of course, it's got to be healthy, you know what I mean? Because you've got to be able to lead them and guide them as well and give them structure, but help, like, be a friend to your kids. So that way, it doesn't feel like it's like so weird. Oftentimes I think we don't really feel like we know our parents or feel comfortable coming to our parents. I experienced that in my journey as well. So I think that's such a big, and also if you want, like, as if a parent is listening to this and they've got their own hang-ups sexually, well, of course you're not going to be able to guide your own kids. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I think it's all of our responsibility to do our own work, so we're in a position to lead others. Especially our children.
Well, especially, right? We're the parent. We need to parent and educate our children. But if we're not healthy, how can we teach them healthy,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So you make a good point there, because we can't teach healthy if we're not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
We can't teach them the proper way if we don't know the proper way, because maybe we were never taught the proper way as well, and not the proper way, but the good way. There's no perfection in sex. I think it's a learning, understanding of the body, and knowing what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy, and what is reality and what is fantasy, because there's a big difference. And I think that's where a lot of people look at porn as negative, because they say, well, you know what, that's just bad sex, that's just dirty sex, where porn is actually enjoyable if you can enjoy it without the addiction part of
Yep.
it.
Yes.
So the part that I want the viewers and the listeners to understand is the fantasy and reality. When does that click? Like, is there something in the body or in the mind that will say, this is not healthy anymore?
Well, I think that's something we have to tune into on our own. That's kind of one of the tips I give people when they're starting, when they're attempting to gauge for themselves. Is this a healthy habit or healthy behavior? For a lot of guys like myself and men that we work with, it's like, for many of us, pornography use, regular pornography consumption kind of leads this ickiness on the soul, on the spirit, on the mind, on the psyche. So I think we have to really determine, like, what is the effect? Like, how does it make me feel? That's the best way to judge if it's healthy or not, is like, how do I feel afterward? Do I feel uplifted and joyful and light and free and good about myself, or not, And I think it's important to dissect, is that some conditioning that I have around my sexuality, or is it because that maybe I've just been binging for 4 hours, watching stuff that really doesn't align with who I am or the man that I want to be, or maybe ways that I want to be acting. And I've just kind of devoted all this energy into this big black hole. And now I'm left feeling disconnected, weird, awkward, unhealthy, and all the stuff that oftentimes comes up around it. So we have to kind of gauge for ourselves. I know for me, even a little bit of porn consumption, it throws me off energetically. It's like, any kind of low vibe, dense energy, for me, it's just not healthy. So we have to really gauge that for ourselves, I think, Liz.
So any type of porn, like any like amateur porn or advanced porn, is a turnoff for you?
It's not a turnoff. It's just that it's just not healthy for me.
Okay.
Where it kind of takes me, and the time I spend on it, and the energy I spend on it, psychically, energetically, physically, mentally. It's not just a quick little snip for me. It just turns into more. So for me, it's like, and then the after effect, the emotional, I think, energetic impact afterwards is just not healthy. Yeah. So for me, like, complete porn abstinence is what I've come to understand is really where I need to be. Again, I'm not saying it's necessarily like that for everybody.
So for the viewers out there and the listeners, what is porn abstinence?
Porn abstinence is total freedom from porn. Like, if I'm abstinent from pornography, it means I don't view pornography. It's like I don't try and maintain a moderate relationship with it. I don't. If someone's abstinent from alcohol, it means they don't drink. They just kind of recognize that abstinence is the path for me. We incorporate into our program and our process the work of refuge recovery, which is a mindfulness-based approach to recovery from addiction, and it's all about abstinence. It just recognizes that, again, the alcoholic probably can't casually drink anymore. You know what I mean? So if we identify that this is an unhealthy behavior or activity for us, then complete and total abstinence is really the ultimate path that we're aspiring for.
You're making really good. I mean, as you're sharing, Matt, I'm understanding a little bit more on the reason why you do what you do, why you created Porn to Purpose, and that. For the viewers and listeners out there that are watching now or that will be watching later and you're watching the replay, if you have any questions at all, you can reach out to Matt and they can reach you at what locations, Matt?
Yes. So two of the easiest ways to find me, one on Facebook, we have the private group, men only, called Porn to Purpose. You can just search Porn to Purpose on Facebook and you'll find the group. We also have a business page, but so you want to look for the group. And you can also email me direct if you just want to connect directly. Maybe you're not on Facebook or you don't want to go that avenue. You want to be a little more discreet about it initially. You can email me at makingpeacewithporn@gmail.com.
And for the viewers that are watching, the links have been put up so you can see them in the stream here, and you can reach out to Matt. Matt, any final words that you would like to tell the viewers and listeners out there about porn and why it is important to reach out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just say, Liz, that there are a couple things that we offer to someone who, again, my stance is not that it's wrong for everybody, and I think I made that clear here today. Again, just for some people, it's just not healthy, and it leads to more. And oftentimes we don't see the correlations. There's like hidden issues with it. Just like maybe when you're younger, you don't realize why it's important to drink a lot of water until you start drinking more water. Then you realize how good it feels to be hydrated, or you don't really realize the harmful effects of cigarettes until you smoke a lot. And then you start to kind of recognize that, hey, it's a drag on my energy, and I don't like the way it makes me feel maybe, or just different stuff like that. Same with porn, when we're younger, we have maybe more resilience around it, or we just don't have the awareness around it. We don't really see the way that it affects us, But I think as we grow, we can begin to see more and more that for some of us, it's just not a good fit. And a couple ways I like to gauge that, Liz, are one, first and foremost, as I kind of shared here today, is really gauging how does it make you feel? Do you notice afterwards that you're feeling energetically uplifted and joyful and inspired, or do you feel that there's an energetic drag afterwards, maybe for a couple of days or a couple of weeks even, So really gauging, I think, the emotional and energetic experience around it and just being really honest with yourself. Just observe before and after. How do you feel? Another way to kind of gauge that for yourself, Liz, I think is it something that you've told yourself you're going to quit? You've tried to quit, right? You've determined that it was something you wanted to remove from your life, but you've been unsuccessful. You continued to return, and you've been unsuccessful in maintaining that for yourself. And number three, is it something that you have to keep secret in your own life? Is it something that you have to hide? Is it something you have to keep a secret from your spouse or your partner? If they knew about it, would it be an issue? Are you comfortable handing over your phone or your web browser history right now to your partner? Or is it something you have to have kind of a smaller, contracted, kind of hidden energy around in your life? I don't think that's ever a healthy way to go about life. So those would be a couple indicators. And if so, it may be worth exploring getting some support around it. And a great place to start is oftentimes just getting into some community around it and getting around others who are also on this path.
So how do we bring awareness to this topic besides the conversation that we're having today?
Oh, I think having the conversation that we're having today, me doing my work and being public about my journey. There's a lot of websites, there's a lot of resources out there, but I think just continuing to have these conversations, Liz. And again, I'm not out there saying porn is bad, you know what I mean? But I'm out there sharing my journey, and I'm out there saying for those of you that maybe recognize that it may be an issue, we're here to support with that. So I think just continuing the conversation, Liz.
Well, I think staying engaged, right? And understanding, and it's okay to speak on things that are uncomfortable, because I think that's number one thing with this year with Tea Time with Miss Liz is going to be some very uncomfortable conversations, but those are conversations that need to be spoken about, because I think we keep it in the silence too long, and that's what causes a lot of the trauma and triggers and not being aware. How do we change anything when we're not aware of it?
Absolutely.
If we don't have awareness that there is possibility of changes, we can't make changes if we don't know them, right?
Absolutely.
So again, if you'd like to reach out to Matt, you can get him on his Facebook group, Porn to Purpose, and also Making Peace with Purpose, Making Peace with Porn. So again, thank you, Matt. But before we close up this tea time, I want to lighten it up before we close up, because I don't like to leave a tea time really heavy, because tea that's heavy is not good, but tea that is light is good. So I want to find out your favorite color, and why is it your favorite color?
Okay, yeah. So I think blue green is my color. Maybe like an ocean blue or an ocean green. Blue and green have been colors that always have appealed to me. I think just energetically in the way that it feels, and when I kind of envision my aura, those are kind of the colors that I see for myself, and I find myself drawn to peaceful, soothing colors.
I like that, and I like that you lighten it up before you left. You brought peace to the room before you leave the tea.
Thank you.
And that's what we need to do, is we need to lighten up, not be so serious all the time. We are talking about serious topics here, but we need to lighten it up as well, because when it gets too heavy, then it doesn't solve anything. It just brings more heaviness. So for all the viewers and listeners out there that have tuned in today and that are watching the replay, if you have any questions at all, you could reach out to me, Miss Liz, or you could reach out to Matt Sinkovitz.
That's right.
I said it right.
You got
so
it, Liz.
I got it. It's like a Ritz cracker.
That's right.
So I want to thank you all for tuning in today and joining me. And I will be back on the 19th at 10 a.m. And you will see me bouncing around with times, because I am working with different guests from around the world. And I am bringing in a man who will be sharing his self-care story on how self-love is important, and he's coming in from Israel. So his time is going to be 5 p.m. his time, 10 a.m. my time, because there's a 7-hour difference. So for anybody who would like to tune into that tea time, that will be January 19th. Then on the 22nd, I have Mariah Harris coming in, and she's coming in from Welch. So again, we will be working with time zones, so you will see different time zones for tea time. So if you're asking a particular time that you will hear tea time, you won't get a particular time. Most tea times will be 3 p.m., but there will be some morning tea times and there will be some evening tea times. And Matt, I really want to thank you for joining me for the launch show of 2022 and bringing season 3 to life, because this is what we do. We bring life, we plant, and we put the seeds in the ground, like Matt mentioned earlier, pulling those weeds out and putting new seeds in, and making a difference. So again, I really want to thank each and every one of you, the viewers out there. If you are watching, please push hashtag replay and let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're tuning in from YouTube, Facebook, and anything like that. And Matt, any final words before we close up this tea time?
No, I think that's everything, Liz. I say go out there and do your best and live your best life. Take another step every day. Be a little bit better every day. That's my motto.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all the viewers out there. I will see you January 19th, 10 a.m. for a new tea time with Miss Liz.